haven't been out there. And so my take is that I think the given on the Titans team this year, the cornerback room, will just end up being the nightmare. Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Friday, August the 30th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined as always by producer JT for one last ride here on the Hot Read podcast, the 337th and my final edition of the show. JT, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. And on this special occasion, we have people asking if I was going to wear the shirt. I was always going to wear the shirt. It's
always going to be the shirt.
I had something else on.
The weird thing is he didn't even plan it. It's just what he wore today. So
I literally just did my laundry, and it's over in it was over in my laundry because I, of course, am lazy, and after I do my laundry, I don't fold it at all. So it was just kind of staring at me
very
like
unmarried man of you. Yeah.
It was just staring at me like the Green Goblin mask. And I was like, I got to put it on for the last show here.
Sure.
So, I'm good though, exciting to talk some Titans and then get up to some antics that only true listeners of the Hot Read podcast will really care about. We got some fun surprises in store today. Some that we both know about, and then some that one of us still does not know about. So that's going to be quite surprising and fun towards the end of the show. So
yeah, I have 3 letters, which if you are a fan of the Hot Read podcast, you know that I hate letters, store-bought letters. I think that it's a ruse and a big waste of your money. It's the corporate cabal trying to get you to spend money on cards that nobody actually cares about and you throw away. I have 3 of them that were just showed up on my doorstep this morning. I got a text from JT that said, check your door. They all say open on pod. So I don't know what they are. They feel like Hallmark cards, so I already hate them. And I'll be opening them probably to some underwhelmment at the end of the show, which isn't a word, but you know what I mean. We're also going to go a little trip down memory lane here. I've got some stats to kind of mark the end of a run for JT and I that began on Labor Day weekend 2 years ago. JT, I didn't realize that our first show together was a Labor Day Monday episode. So literally 2 years ago, you and I have done, I counted them. Hang on, let me go. 270 of the 337 shows have been you and I. So the show's really hit its stride 270 episodes ago. And I've got some clips from my first ever episode 3 years ago, which is hard to listen to. And then some clips from JT's first episode 2 years ago, which is equally hard to listen to, that we'll all laugh at the end of the show. But this is not just going to be one big vanity farewell tour of an episode. We are going to do what we were already planning on doing before I ever found out that I was going to be leaving the show. And by the way, folks asking me, what are you doing? Where are you going? Physically, I'm going nowhere. In terms of covering the Titans, also going nowhere. So if you like my Titans coverage, don't worry about that. That's going to continue apace. I'm just going to be doing it for a different company. And that'll be announced I believe on Monday at the beginning of next week. So good news for everybody, really. I get to move up in the world, which is exciting, but always sad to have to leave behind the show that I built. And for JT, he gets to take the reins. And like we said on Tuesday, producer JT is dead and gone. We buried him out back. Host JT has emerged from the cocoon, and the beautiful butterfly that he is, spreading his wings. Him and Stoney are going to take over the show starting Tuesday, right? Next Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, you say it so gracefully, but the people really know that this is the coup d'etat that has been put in place and has been set in motion for 7 or 8 months now.
I think coup d'etat is the most sophisticated word you've ever used on this show.
Probably. So
yeah,
maybe
congrats. You've been talking about it jokingly for years about getting rid of me, and you finally did it. So that's good news.
Start maybe next week. We just start saying coup d'etat a bunch. We start using just
the whole show's going to be in French. No one's going to understand
the most prolific in thought-provoking words next week. Maybe I've just been hiding that all along. So
well, now that Stoney and you can talk on this show, no more boisterous Easton and Zach around to hog up all of the space. You two can just have polite, respectful, gentlemanly, ball knower conversations. It can be a really highbrow product that you guys put out there. So I'm excited to hear that. It's going to be surprising to folks when Stoney shows up on his first show wearing the shirt as well. And people realize the shirt, that's the new uniform of the Hot Read podcast. It's a requirement to wear this random old raggedy shirt on every single show.
It's not raggedy, it's vintage, okay?
It's what we call in the fashion industry, it's weathered. It's a weathered item. I just off the top here, also not football related, which by the way, I got off track a minute ago. Very ADD of me. We're going to do Titans hot takes today. We're going to do a little bit cleanup, things that have happened in the last 48 hours between cut day and today, just to get folks up to speed who haven't paid attention to some of the more pedantic moves the Titans have made. And then we get into one of my favorite segments we do every single year, which is the Titans Take Purge, the second annual Take Purge. JT and I both have not conspired on this, so I'm excited to hear what JT has to say, but there'll be a portion of today's show where the Purge siren will sound, if you're familiar with the show The Purge. It's like that. But during the allotted period of time, we are allowed to fire off takes about the Titans, the AFC South, or elsewhere in the NFL if we still feel so inclined, that we don't really believe and we certainly don't want to be held responsible for, but we do think about them. We do wonder about them. And there's a part of us, maybe deep down buried in our soul, that thinks this might actually be the case. And so we'll discuss some of those things. A very fun exercise. And hey, a great opportunity for those of you that are watching with us live to jump in and be a part of today's conversation. We want to hear your Take Purge takes, of course, during the Take Purge portion. Don't throw them out now, or we're going to have to hold you liable for them throughout the season, and you might have to go to jail. It could be really bad. So we'll get to all of that. And then again, at the end of the show, I'll do my farewell, and we'll open whatever are in these stupid letters, and we'll listen to some funny old clips, and then we'll get out of here, and it will be a new dawn here on the Hot Read podcast. But before we get into all of that, one thing I wanted to mention off the top, JT, it has nothing to do with the show today, but over the years, I've just started shows with what's on my mind, and what's on my mind as of last night. I want to just make a public statement about people that harass you about your phone plan in stores. You know how you go to a Target or like a Costco or a Sam's Club, and there's like an AT&T stand or like some broadband stand where they've got some dorky high school kids in a button-down shirt that doesn't quite fit them right, tucked into their rumpled khakis, and they got their little iPad, and they're like, "Hey, man, how much you pay for your phone?" And you're like, "I would do anything to not be talking to you right now." And they harass you about your phone plan as you try to walk by and just live your life and shop at the store without being bothered. I hate them. I hate everything that is involved in that process. I hate the stores that allow them to work there. I hate the companies that employ them to harass people. I hate all of it. I hate that they put me in a position to be a jerk when I don't want to be. But the only kind way to deal with them is to not ignore them. If you want to ignore them, which you have to, or else every time you go to the store, it's going to be an hour expedition. Like, dude, I'm just here to buy. I'm here to buy a thing of deodorant. Like, leave me alone. I want to be in and out of the store in 5 minutes. I don't want to pull up my phone plan on your stupid little iPad. I think if a politician ran on the platform of abolishing these people, making it illegal to do this, I might become a single issue voter. I really might. It bothers me that much.
Yeah, I mean, my plan of attack, and of course, this happens most of the time. This happens when you're at like a Costco. So this is why I probably don't like Costco's. I probably stay away because this is probably where it happens.
Another old bit here on the Hot Read podcast.
But my favorite thing to do is actually, I'm quite the opposite. I will engage them in conversation. However, I'll always make note to say the wrong thing that they don't want to hear. So it just kind of like crushes their a little bit. Like,
right.
Like, it's like, "Hey, who do you have?" And I'll be like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." And they're like, "How much are you paying?" And I'm like, I give it like a really low price, and
$20
like,
a month.
But,
it's awesome.
How much do you get?
Grandfather deal.
And I give
from
them,
the
I give
early
them
2000s.
like, I give them like this big ass number, and they're like, "Oh, dang it!" Like, and then I'm like, "All right, see ya."
Yeah, that's
and
tough.
Then, but that's the way I think that it should be. That and also spam phone calls. It's fun to mess with them as well. So.
Yeah, I feel it really depends on the person. Like if it's a nice young kid, I don't want to really like ruin their day. But if it's somebody that if I'm just in a bad mood, sometimes I'll just stare at them and act like I don't speak English, and just as I walk by, just kind of lock eyes and say nothing, which really will throw them off. Sometimes I just am like, dude, I'm not doing it today. Leave me alone. Jacob asking, would you prefer salesman who asks what water filter you use? Jacob's just trying to make the worst of all worlds for me here. We appreciate all of you guys in the chat, by the way. Michael, Joseph, Kenneth, Jacob, Shrike, Wyatt, all you guys. I think I may have said Wyatt twice. Broski Bear, welcome in. All of you guys, we appreciate you being here. And one last random thing, by the way. Joseph saying Easton is going in witness protection. Yeah, I'm going to be living with Quentin Bohanna. We'll be doing the whole witness protection thing. You're never going to hear from me again. I just saw on Twitter, did you know that Nashville is the hottest city in the country today? The whole United States? It's not hotter anywhere else, apparently. It got up to 104 at the airport, which I think it hadn't done that since the beginning of July. So that little false fall we got, what was it, last week, was nice. And you just knew we were going to pay for it. I guess we're paying for it now. I'm just looking outside my window, and it looks too hot to exist. Have you stepped outside today? I've not stepped outside. I've just avoided it altogether.
I've stepped out. I stepped out this morning. So that was probably the play, right? But
before
I do not plan on. I plan on. Well, I may step outside again depending on things later. But my plan is probably just to watch this NDSU Colorado game tonight. And
that's right, real football on tonight. That's exciting. That's exciting. What is that even on? Like, what's that on? Where do you watch
ESPN.
This? Okay, it's on the big boy streamers. All right, fair enough. All right, let's get into the Titans talk today. We've rambled enough. And before we get to the Titans take Purge, which is the meat of today's show, we have some cut down cleanup things to get out of the way. Some cuts, some additions, some waiver claims. JT, you were tasked with kind of compiling these things. Can you quickly get folks back up to speed on all the things that have happened since Tuesday's cut down?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is a pretty relevant name that has been around the Titans for a long time, is on his way out, as the Titans yesterday finalized a deal to trade defensive back Elijah Molden to the Los Angeles Chargers in exchange for a round draft pick. That pick ended up being a 2026 seventh. So that is an interesting deal. We heard reports yesterday about maybe Elijah Molden not being very happy with his situation here in Nashville. And with that as well, maybe because of being pushed down the depth chart with additions like Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, that's kind of what happened. It was the root of his unhappiness. Either way, he finds his way over to the LA Chargers, where he joins former Titans Christian Fulton and Hassan Haskins now. And, wish him all the best of luck. It'll be interesting to see how he fits into their defensive scheme now with the Chargers.
Yeah, I had a handful of people asking me, like, why is he unhappy? Where'd this come from? He seemed like a nice guy. He's unhappy because he got buried alive on the depth chart for the past month. He was repping with the threes in joint practices with Seattle. He was playing into the fourth quarter of preseason games. It's not personal. It's nothing like it's not a bad attitude thing. Anyone would be upset with that. That stinks. So I think it's as much a mutual respect thing as anything for them to send him off to where, in LA, he's going to get an opportunity to play, where here in Tennessee, he probably would have spent most Sundays inactive. Barring injuries up the depth chart for the safety position, I don't think he would have been active for more than half of the games, which isn't fair to him. And, he's on his rookie contract about to expire. They don't want to pay him, obviously. Made a lot of sense for them to move him for essentially nothing. But hey, you know what? Rand's he's gonna go crazy in that 7th round 2 drafts from now. Can't wait for that.
That's the big one already. He's already eyeing up some 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds,
right?
in that draft.
The thing that I'm already dreading because they're gonna have 3 7th round picks in that draft all spring. We're gonna be fielding just package 3 7ths and go get a 3rd. That's the recommendation you're going to hear over and over, and we're going to have to explain that's not how that works.
I will say one more thing on Elijah Molden. Like you said, that comment about how he probably wouldn't be active on Sundays is pretty interesting, because I tend to agree with that sentiment, and because just the fact that Elijah Molden over the past couple of years has not really been a contributor on special teams either, which is kind of where guys who were pushed down that far on the depth chart were going to have to make an impact anyways. And between the injury risk of just him playing on the field in general, and then going out there on special teams and playing, he just probably was never going to find himself into a rotation where you now have guys like Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs, and then you'll have Jamal Adams in there as well, and even maybe a little bit of Mike Brown and Julius Woods, who they picked up yesterday, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But yeah, it just seems like he kind of he lost his spot here in Nashville, and so he moves and he reunites with Christian Fulton, and they can give
Dynamic duo,
LA
baby.
they can give LA a piece of or a taste of the medicine Titans fans have been getting served up here over the past 2 years.
That's
So.
right. That's right. Well, let's get to him now. You said let's get to him later. Let's get to him now. Who else have the Titans added since Tuesday's cutdown? They've made a couple of waiver claims.
Yes, they did. 3 waiver claims in the past couple of days here. 2 from the initial cutdown day or the day after cutdown day. Defensive end Ali Gay from Houston, Julius Woods, the safety from Dallas, and then about 15-30 minutes ago or so, the Titans claimed Darrell Baker, a cornerback out of Indianapolis. So that kind of answers where their head is at on the cornerback room, even though they said they felt pretty good about it. Darrell Baker, they submit his waiver claim there, so he is on the squad. And then as well, Nick Vannett is re-signed to the team. So the Titans went from 5 tight ends to 4 tight ends to now 5 tight ends again. And it was important to note that Brian Callahan today said that that was kind of by design because those big kind of stacked rooms of both interior linebackers and tight ends are going to be major contributors to how they play special teams. So that is the thinking behind why they're keeping so many at both the tight end position and the linebacker position. So those are the 4 additions they made in the last 2 days.
Yeah, that was something that the more I think about it the past couple of days, the more it feels obvious, and I shouldn't have really been surprised. I don't think that the fact that with particularly on the kickoff, the new kickoff rule, the fact that guys being really fast, like gunner types, are devalued by those new rules because you don't need a guy that can run down the field really fast to tackle them because they're already down there. That, the new scheme is going to favor bigger bodied guys like linebackers and like tight ends that aren't the fastest, but they're strong tacklers. They still can move well. They're not the biggest guys on the team, but they're kind of that intermediate body type mix of speed and strength. So I think that's why you're going to see less cornerbacks, less receivers on depth charts down at the bottom, more of the linebacker, tight end types, maybe running back types that make teams around the league. I think that we might have missed that a little bit, right? Went right over our heads a little bit.
And it's definitely just kind of the learning curve of it all, right? With this new kickoff, we really didn't know how teams would really try to attack that. And,
right,
maybe that's just blindness on our part that, of course, they wouldn't want these skinny dudes trying to bash their bodies together against the other skinny dudes. No, they probably want some bigger, stronger guys to go up against the opposing kick return team. So it does make sense. And then there are 2 other moves that are of note, I would say, from the past 2 days. One from earlier today, the Titans also signed to their practice squad defensive lineman James Lynch from Minnesota and are also bringing Rashad Weaver back to the practice squad as well.
Okay, well, there you go. Rashad Weaver back, like they said yesterday, they hoped to have. Did you? I may have just not been listening. Did you mention the Cedric Gray to IR move?
I did not, but that is also one that was very important. Cedric Gray going on to IR with designation to return. I think that's the big sticking point where we were kind of talking about 2 days ago. Like, what's the difference between a guy like TK McClendon going on IR or now Cedric Gray? Well, TK McClendon, Brian Callahan also noted today, is on the IR and is out for the season because they kind of found out after surgery that turf toe was absolutely legit. Like, it was worse than they thought.
Yep.
I think that was the big buzzword of the day, that with his turf toe. But then with Cedric Gray, it being a little bit more of a nerve injury in that shoulder, that gives him some optimism that he can return. But obviously with the kind of nature of that injury, I see why they put him on IR. I thought it was the right thing for them to do, specifically talking about trying to get that shoulder back to be fully healthy, as well as, he's missed so much time. I'd rather give him time out of action to kind of begin developing and ramping up again before he gets thrown to the flames so that he can become a key contributor down the road. I think that's the right move for them.
Completely agree. One last note from yesterday when I was at the facility: Titans cornerbacks 1 and 2, both ready to go for week 1 against the Bears. Brian Callahan said that L'Jarius Sneed, who we spoke to, he is practicing with no limitations already. And then Chido Awuzie, he is back but limited this week. Should be a full participant next week, so we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, is that everything in terms of catching up? Are we ready for the take purge? Is it time?
I believe so. I think we can talk. Bowser had a workout with them, but it seems like Tyus Bowser is a guy who is kind of just bouncing around the league right now. I think this will be like his 5th visit. I know he worked out with the Cowboys and then went to the Titans, also worked out with the Colts and the Seahawks. So this is a guy that continues to bounce around, but it's been a name that's been popular, that has been put out there as a guy who could potentially come in here and maybe take some of the load off of maybe an Arden Key having to play all 3 downs, or, kind of give that room a little bit more veteran presence.
All right, so that's what you missed in the past 48 hours or so since the Titans finished their cut down. And with that, we get to... Oh no, I didn't expect the horn to fire so quickly. We're in it. This is the Titans.
I got you.
You did get me. That siren indicates the beginning of the purge for the next indeterminate amount of time.
However long it takes to get through our list.
However long it takes to get all our takes off. We are not able to be held criminally or civilly liable for any of the thoughts that we may put out there on the microphone. And this is your opportunity, those of you watching with us live, to join us in the comments over on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page and fire off your hottest Titans, AFC South, or otherwise in the NFL take of the year, something that you've been kind of chewing on up here, but you're not quite ready to say it with your chest. JT, we'll start with the Titans and then zoom out to the South and then zoom out to any other NFL things we have on our minds. Would you like to do the honors and go with your first Titans take, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, I can start it off right here.
Okay.
And I think there was some talk now that we are in the purge area and I'm no longer liable for anything that I say here over the next indeterminate amount of time.
Right,
I did have a take about a certain cornerback last year. It has been confirmed in this moment right here.
You go back and listen to last year's take purge. JT's
I had a certain take about a cornerback, and I'm going
Christian
to make
Fulton.
Well, yes, that may be the person. But I'm going to come back this year and also start off the Titans take purge with another take about a cornerback.
Oh, God.
And so here we go. This is one I've been chewing on. It's one I continue to chew on. I think over training camp, the hype for him has kind of died out a little bit. But I'm gonna say it right here on the Titans take purge. I do believe that when at the end of the season, we get down to it and awards start coming out and whatnot, I do believe on that first team All-Pro, the nickel corner will be Roger McCreary from the Titans.
Wow.
And here's why.
All right.
I think that never in his career as a Titan, McCreary has been surrounded with talent like this, bringing in L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, getting a defensive coordinator like Denard Wilson, who really builds his staff around the secondary and really enhances that. And so with that, I think Roger McCreary now has a chance to kind of play his own game. We talk about a lot last year how Roger McCreary and guys like Amani Hooker may have, and even when Kevin Byard was on the team, may have been having to do more because of the lesser talented guys on the team.
A little babysitting going on.
Yeah, a little babysitting is the word there that I would use as well. And so with that, I think that now he is able to play more of that full-time slot position there. We're going to be able to see the best of Roger McCreary. And so when you look at a guy when he's trying to make the first team All-Pro, you look at last year's winner, Trent McDuffie, his stats and how he was able to get that award. His stats came down to 54 solo tackles, 16 assisted tackles, 5 forced fumbles, which I think is the big one for him, but 27 stops, 3 sacks, 11 missed tackles, no interceptions, a passer rating allowed of 102.7 and 10.7 yards per reception. And so I think if Roger McCreary can get to that 4 or 5 interception mark, I think that under this new defense, he'll be able to flourish and thrive, and we'll see his name on that first team All-Pro list come January.
This is so funny because I went back and listened to last year's take purge in preparation for today, just to refresh my thoughts and, a year removed, kind of grade some takes, see who was on it, who was not. As you have already admitted, your first take was about Christian Fulton being an All-Pro, and that was
It was not. It was
so
not.
far
It was.
from.
It wasn't about him being.
Oh,
an
sorry, it was about
All-Pro.
him leading the league in interceptions. So you're right, it was worse than that. Leading the league in interceptions with 10. He had 0.
Oops.
He had 0 interceptions all year long.
Oops.
So he was tied for last in that department. My first take, which went before yours on that episode last year, was that Christian Fulton, who we had all fallen back in love with throughout training camp, was just going to suck again anyways. And so I was on the money with my negative take, your positive take in the toilet. I'm afraid history has repeated itself because my first take, this is not the order I was going to go in, but it's too perfect.
Yeah.
Is about cornerbacks as well. Not about any one cornerback, but about the guys. And I think that on a lot of teams, we spend all August, all summer really, talking about a player or a position group as a given, right? It's like, Patrick Mahomes is still the quarterback in Kansas City. So the passing game is going to be all right. Like, we're not worried about that. How's the line going to look? How's the run game going to look? Because that will put that part of the offense to the side a little bit. I think with the Titans, inarguably, that position group has been the cornerback room. And a part of that has been because we've not seen a whole lot of the full assembled group this August. There have been guys that haven't been out there. And so my take is that I think the given on the Titans team this year, the cornerback room, will just end up being the nightmare all year round. I think it will be something that nobody really sees coming. And I think we are underselling. Again, this is the take Purge. I don't necessarily fully believe this, but I do wonder it. I wonder if we're underselling the fact that the top 2 corners on the team we've not seen out here all August. And that means your boy, Roger McCreary, has been forced to be the number 1 outside corner. And so when that's been the case, when we're watching joint practice against the Seahawks, good receivers, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been the greatest. It's not
Future Hall of Famer Jake Bobo.
Right. It's not looked awesome. And so I just worry that, and we know that they're 4 deep. We know that they only kept 4. We've been talking for the past couple of weeks about how, hey, man, if they have any injuries here and have to dip into cornerback 4 or 5, 6 at all, it's going to be ugly in a hurry. And a guy like Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who you and I both have the utmost faith in to eventually develop into a good cornerback, we've not seen super consistent play from him yet. It's been very up and down. So even him getting on the field for a lot of the snaps, I worry about early on. So I just think if you're missing any of L'Jarius Sneed or any of Chido Awuzie, again, Sneed constantly a liability, or sorry, not a liability, constantly a worry in terms of whether or not his knee management is going to be okay. And then Awuzie, who it feels like stepped on the Titans field and 10 seconds later missed the entire month of practice because of a soft tissue injury. And he's on the older side of an NFL cornerback scale. I just worry about them losing guys and it unraveling really quickly. And if they spend most of the season missing 1 or 2 guys in the rotation, it could look so much different than what we were expecting it to look like on paper when all 3 starting guys and their depth player are healthy and available.
Yeah, I not to spend too much time on the cornerbacks, but in the secondary as a whole, but I think I had another one as well here, which kind of is
another cornerback take. 3 cornerback takes up the rep.
It's more about the defense and secondary as a whole, and so a lot of what you said is my reasoning why I'm saying this here in the take Purge. But my take is that I think there's a chance that this secondary might be bad, and when I say bad, I mean like bottom 10 bad. Like I think there is a chance that
bad as last year, worse than last year. How bad are we talking?
I mean, that's around where they were, right? Bottom 10 in the league from 20 to 32.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, L'Jarius Sneed, if that injury derails his season, you're already trying to elevate guys. Like you said, the reason why I think that Roger McCreary take is so hot is because Roger McCreary is out there kind of getting bodied by a lot of bigger receivers, which is something we've seen from him throughout the majority of his career.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a guy like Chido Awuzie, who, for better or for worse, continues a slight downward trajectory into his career. This is his third team, and last year, in his last year with the Bengals, there were 7 games where he allowed a QBR of over 100 plus. There have been times where he has been able to absolutely get diced and dissected when he is the number one corner. So if you're losing L'Jarius Sneed to time with injury and then having to rely on guys like Cheeto and Roger McCreary, that means that you're probably going to see more struggle. And then you have to talk about the backside of this secondary with guys like Jamal Adams, a guy who has been very, very injury riddled. Like, we think that he may be able to be a little bit more healthy because we weren't really familiar with the severity of how bad that hip injury was, or quad injury was for him a year and a half ago. But he still has missed a lot of time. Like that should be a given. You talk about a guy like Quandre Diggs, who was on the wrong side of 30. And then if those two guys are missing, you're looking at like a safety room of Amani Hooker and Mike Brown. Amani Hooker, who we both believe is a pretty good player, but when he's called on to be that main guy and have to, like you throw out that word again, babysit a little bit, that's where you see the Titans secondary start to struggle. And so I wonder if these injuries that we've continued to kind of beat around the bush about this cornerback and safety room come to roost. We may be looking at another injury riddled secondary that is calling on guys that they pick off of practice squads, like a Anthony Kendall and a Mike Brown and a Gabe Jeudy-Lally if he's ever elevated.
Yeah, I hope this negativity is unwarranted and just we contain it to this take purge period, and then we don't talk about it anymore. But my next take is also on the negative side of things a little bit. It's half negative, half positive. And of all the takes in today's take purge, this is the one that I am closest to just being serious about. Like I may end up, what's the opposite of disavowing? Avowing this take when we get closer to the season next week, I guess. I think that this Titans team could ultimately be as good as they look on paper and still suck for like 2/3 of the year. And this is something that we've talked about, again, outside the confines of the take purge so far. You look back at teams like, and the cookie cutter example is always the Brady Bucks, that first year in Tampa. What was it, 22 or 21, I guess?
I think it was 20, right?
20, whatever it was. The first year in Tampa. They've got a pretty good team.
Tom Brady ended up like breaking and entering into someone's random house in Tampa during COVID.
Yeah, he's trying to go to his OC's house and it was wrong address. Yeah, that was a time of all the times, certainly one of them. That year, they had a good team on paper going into the year, a lot of excitement, and then they get to their very late week, I guess 15 bye, and they're 7-7. They're 500. They've been fighting and clawing. I mean, it's been moments like on Thursday Night Football where Tom Brady is holding up the 3 or the 4. He forgets what down it is, and they lose the game because of a mental error from the GOAT. And then they end up not losing a game the rest of the season and winning the Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Titans are going to do that. I'm just saying that's an example of how a team can be quite good. And just the sheer magnitude of the turnover, the amount of things that have changed for this team. Roster on up, front office changes, the way that they do things with Rand Carthen's new staff. Obviously the coaching staff, all new, a lot of guys working together for the first time. And then if you look up and down the roster, I tweeted this out the other day, like half of the team is different and new, and they're talented people up and down, coaching staff, front office, and players alike. Even the most talented people come together and the Olympic basketball team is the greatest basketball players in the world. And they're spending the pre-basketball tune-up period barely beating out teams from Africa and you're like, how are they almost losing to Nigeria, whoever they're playing? Like the Avengers need some time to practice together. And so I think this team can be as good as they look on paper, but I also think they may really, really struggle anyways through September, through October, into November. And that will be okay if we're seeing the things we're needing to see and see, again, it's all about trajectory. It's all about progress. Are they going in the right direction? Or, have they stopped the bleeding from last year? That's going to be the key. So I think the Titans being a good and exciting, crappy team is on the table, I guess is the way to put it.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense considering their first 6 or 7 games is pretty much the hardest part of their schedule. And then you continue to look past that in how many divisional games they have down the stretch. You may see a team that shows the flashes, but because of that kind of trying to gel, we end up seeing them 500 for most of the year. And really struggling to kind of break away and become a plus 500 team. And so I definitely agree with you. Another positive one for me, but kind of not positive, it's back and forth here. I think that there is a chance that Tony Pollard cements himself as the running back one in this offense and runs for 1,300 all-purpose yards as Tyjae Spears kind of finds himself in this little bit more of a change of pace back role for this team. And it's based off the things that I've continued to see over the past 2.5 weeks from this Titans team. Tony Pollard, in the last preseason game, getting all 10 of the snaps with the ones at the beginning of the game and looking really, really good in those snaps, being able to, be efficient in the runs, being able to do all the things in pass protection, even being that check down guy for Will Levis. Tony Pollard brings a lot of versatility, some that we probably didn't see last year because it was the year after the injury. Now we're 2 years removed. It's the year after the year, like we continue to say. And Tony Pollard, to me, looks to be back, in my opinion. I think Tony Pollard has looked really, really strong. And so, we continue to talk about how as efficient as he has, and I know they've played against 2s and 3s for the most part in the games where the starters have started, but still, I do think that with Tony Pollard, you're getting a lot of things that Tyjae Spears does, but maybe Tony does a little bit better right now in his stage of the career. And I think that's something that Brian Callahan might continue to lead on, even though we look at what he's had in years past with Cincinnati, kind of that dynamic between a Joe Mixon and a Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon and the Chase Brown, like all of those different things. That's usually how it shakes out. And so I think that with the way that they've continued to ramp up this offense over the past 2-ish weeks, I think there definitely is a possibility that Tony Pollard ends up cementing himself as this workhorse back, even though we continue to talk about a 50-50 split. And like I said, I think 1,300 all-purpose yards is not out of the realm of possibility for Tony Pollard this year.
Yeah, as Dylan says in the comments here, Tony Pollard, anytime touchdown in week 1, he's got his money there. A brief aside, Brandon Ayuk just signed with the Niners, so that we can quit talking about that. Thank goodness. Pouring one out for Pretty Ricky. Tough beat for the People's Insider. Hope he gets back on feet.
Tough beat for you, someone who you continued to back him
this
entire
it was wish casting because I got him on my fantasy team that we drafted in like March, and I was just hoping
interesting because
I got Debo, not Ayuk, and I was hoping Debo would become really expensive and I could trade him off because he's the new one in San Francisco. But alas, no. What were you going to say something?
I was going to say it'll be interesting because it is a front-loaded 4-year deal worth $120 million. I don't know how with that front load what the AAV. I guess 30 is probably
76 is guaranteed. So it
brings up a point now.
I believe off the top of my head, is that the 2? Is that the second?
I think that's right behind
Justin.
Justin or CD. Maybe it's 30.
Because that's what I'm asking. Is it the third highest paid or is it the second highest paid? No, I'm not sure.
I would not know that right off the top of my head. I can look.
Either 2 or 3. Got it.
He's up there. But okay, I think no matter what, it moves Calvin Ridley from the 16th highest paid wide receiver to the 17th highest paid wide receiver.
He is getting more money than Calvin. It's true.
That's all I have to say.
Where was that when they signed Calvin? What was he at? 10? How many spots does he move down? Okay, yeah. So 7 to move down. Okay. All right. My next take, my last Titans take here before we move on to the AFC South. A positive one for you here. The take is that, and this one's maybe the most out there. Rand Carthon, I think he had the 182nd, the 242nd, and the 252nd picks in this past year's draft. I think he struck gold on all of them. I think they're all 3 going to be NFL starters by year 2, maybe year 3. I think that the trio of Jaquan Jackson, James Williams, and Jalen Harrell are all really fantastic late round hits. I think they're all going to contribute to the Titans team this year. And I think that they are all on a trajectory to become at worst, threes in their group, rotational guys in their group. I think that they all 3 could be starters in year 2 or year 3. So here's the deal. We talked about Rand Carthon when he was hired. This guy is somebody coming from San Francisco. He has a lot of experience with evaluating, scouting, and choosing these late round guys, hitting on late round picks that the Niners had a pretty good track record with, right? Guys that became household names in the NFL. And you're like, wow, he was a 5th round pick. Ran Carthon was instrumental in those kinds of decisions. And so he comes in this year, he gets his staff in there, and they get after it without, frankly, Mike Vrabel being involved in the draft process. And so it's the Ran Carthon show through and through. And they go and they get these 3 guys who have all overproduced so far in camp. I think all 3, again, are going to be out there on Sundays. Casual Titans fans are going to learn these guys' names pretty quickly, I think. And if you hit on even 2 of these guys, it's an unbelievable hit rate for the late rounds of the draft. And that's the kind of thing where if you have a draft or 2 like that, where you have it's just strong, you have 5, 6, 7 guys that are all contributors, a couple starters in there, maybe a star in there. That's how you get a team from worst to first kind of territory. And so if that is the case, if this is a legitimate take and not just a take purge, dream scenario, I think that this team could be good in a hurry. And it's because of the decisions that Ran Carthon made with their late round draft picks.
And I think that maybe could continue. I would say that, Chef Ran continues to cook with those late rounds. And maybe that is some of the reason why he continues to get these late round picks for guys who, obviously J-Rob drafted 3 to 4 to 5 rounds earlier than what they're sold for, because of the scouting department that he kind of has taken pieces from the Rams front office and the 49ers as well, and kind of built his own here. So I think that's very possible. Should we get to some of the takes here in the comments?
Yes, and I can't believe this is happening on my last show. My wife is frantically texting me right now with some kind of emergency downstairs that I have to attend to. So if you wouldn't mind vamping and talking with, I know, the last show, I told her, are you sure? Like I have to? And she said yes. So I hope that nobody's dying. I'll be back hopefully in like 2 minutes. Until then, JT, entertain the masses.
All righty. Well, let's I guess go through some of these takes here in the comments. I guess, getting a little bit of a preview of what I'll be doing next week. We can start with Shrike113 in the chat here saying, take CJ Slowick takes a step back and Will Levis ends up the best quarterback in this Callahan directed in the AFC South. I think that's one that I flirted with. I think that's a hot take for sure, considering the pieces that a lot of these other teams have around it. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all that Will Levis ends up being the best quarterback out of the 4 here in the AFC South come, let's say, January or so. You talk about CJ Stroud and the Texans. I think that's something we might get to a little bit later. Maybe that last year of the Texans offense was maybe a little bit of a pipe dream for Bobby Slowick. We'll see how he bounces back in year 2 of this offense here. Can that production with CJ Stroud and how many mouths they have to feed now kind of continue in that offense? That's the interesting question there. Trevor Lawrence, are they ever going to get over the hump with this reworked wide receiver core again for this team? But you still have so many holes on that offensive line, guys who are unproven. Can Trevor Lawrence actually take that leap in his production and his performance? That's the big question for him. And then Anthony Richardson, can he just stay on the field? Like, can Anthony Richardson play more than 2 games? If he can't, I think Will Levis has a great shot. But like you said, I think the biggest thing for Will Levis is that Brian Callahan system and how much it's been tailored to him. And with all these other quarterbacks, it may be more of the mind behind who's calling the plays than the actual quarterback on the field. Whereas in Tennessee, it really feels like Brian Callahan has kind of made this offense for the quarterback and not just for himself. And I think that is a really interesting avenue for Will Levis to continue to make a case to be the number 1 quarterback in the AFC South. I think it's definitely a surprise and why it definitely belongs here. I think there are as many downsides as there are upsides for Will Levis, many that we've talked about over the past 3.5 months or so. But I do like that one as well. Jacob on the AFC South train as well here saying Trevor Lawrence will easily be the worst quarterback in the division this season. I think it's a hot one when you consider Anthony Richardson has played he's only thrown for 2,500 yards in his whole career, like collegiate, high school, NFL. I think there's a lot more steps for him to go, but Trevor Lawrence, I think, has the second best case in that one, as we've seen Doug Peterson and that offense continue to fall flat in the way they use their wide receivers. Brian Thomas Jr., I think, is the biggest one for him. If Brian Thomas Jr. really does not pan out, Trevor Lawrence, I think, falls to the wayside for sure. As we get more comments in here, we can continue to look at some of these. I'm glad Easton isn't here because, like you guys are saying in the comments, I'm really glad that he's not here because he is the Trevor Lawrence truther on the show. I'm glad we can kind of kick him out afterwards. So we can have a more, normal discussion about him and where he's been in his career. Stoney coming into the comments, within the confines of the take purge, Pollard and Spears, both top 10 in rushing yards. All-pro Peter Skoronski and top 5 defense by season's end. I guess we can break that down little by little here. First of all, Pollard and Spears, both top 10 in rushing yards. Like, is that possible? Like, I really don't know. That would mean that the passing game of this offense really is not working at all. And I think we've seen that they really do want to emphasize the run here with how many tight ends they kept, how much 12 personnel we think that they're going to continue to use in the offense this upcoming year with Brian Callahan. But Pollard and Spears, both top 10 in rushing, feels like they're going to have to give, for them to both get top 10 in rushing, it feels like you'd have to give both of them 18 to 20 carries a game each, in my opinion. And so I don't know if we're running the ball 40 times in this Brian Callahan offense. All-pro Peter Skoronski, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think we've seen offensive linemen take that second-year leap. I think Peter Skoronski has the best pieces around him to do so. And then top 5 defense by season's end, I think they have a lot of pieces if they can put it together. That's one I agree with as well. Dylan, this comment here. If the secondary turns out to be a top 10 or 15 unit in the league, I'm going to laugh when Denard Wilson says that this show was the main contribution to their bulletin board material. Hey, if it makes the Titans better, I guess that's if it makes the Titans better in the confines of this indeterminate period of time where we are allowed to say whatever we want and not be held accountable, glad for it. And well, he's back. That was a big entrance here. Hello? Are you here?
Hello.
Oh.
I'm back.
Is everyone dead? Everyone
my
dead?
family, they all left me in the middle of the show. No.
Oh, wow.
The stupidest thing. Our baby, my daughter Valerie, spit up all over her car seat last night. So we took off all the upholstery on the car seat because you can wash it. It's like, machine washable. I'm out of breath. I was running. And I washed it last night, and then we hadn't put it back on yet, and she had to go pick up her mom in a hurry and had no idea how to put it back on, and was trying in the parking lot. Was like, I don't know how to put this together. So I had to go down there and do that really fast. Out of the year.
Well, we had a great conversation about how Trevor Lawrence is actually. We had a great conversation about how Trevor Lawrence is actually mid, and we were glad that you weren't here to.
I might have a take about that.
Yeah, well, we'll get to those as we continue to go down here. Jacob saying, take Purge. Mason Kinsey will catch a game-winning touchdown this season. I think that's an interesting one.
Sure.
Awaken to the Eternal.com, a Hall of Fame name in the Hot Read podcast chat here, says that the Titans will win a minimum of 9 games. We have AJ in the comments saying the Titans get 3+ Pro Bowlers this year. Which
name them, AJ. Name them.
Yeah,
shoot your shot. It's not hot enough to just say 3+. You got to call them out.
And then Joey saying, take Purge. Ridley provides top 15 fantasy wide receiver value for the next 2 to 3 years.
It's the end of that one that's hot, is that he's just going to keep doing it into his older age. That would be impressive.
Well, he continues to be 25 on paper, so that would mean
that's right. So he'll only be 28 by the end.
28 season would be there as well. So I think that's all the ones that we got through.
AFCSouth take, or were you just vamping the whole time with all of these takes?
We were giving AFCSouth adjacent takes. AJ comes back in here and says Jeff, Will, and Roger Beans McCreary. So
Roger Beans, where's Beans come from?
I have no idea where that comes from, but sure. We can move on to the AFC South as we started to get into some of those. I think the biggest one that kind of started that conversation about the AFC South. Let me go up and find it again. Let's see. Well, you just give your first one and then I'll bring it back up.
Well, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence being
Oh, here
mid,
it is real
apparently.
quick. Sorry,
Okay.
hold on. The take was that CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowick take a step back, and
Okay.
Will Levis ends up being the best quarterback in this Callahan-directed AFC offense.
Okay. Interesting.
In the
Awaken
AFC
to the
South.
eternal.com right now, just giving us a swift kick on the butt on the way out the door here. Your lo-fi footage is what makes you guys, because you aren't talking. It's
Wow.
tough. It's tough.
Oh,
Okay.
AJ says he has a sponsorship from Bush's Baked Beans from when he was in Auburn.
Does he
Or at
really? How did
Auburn.
I not know that?
I guess so.
Okay. All right. Well, my first AFC South take is not really hot to me, but apparently it's hot to you all. And so I'm going to unveil it here in the take purge, is that I think Trevor Lawrence pretty firmly solidifies himself as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL this season. Just in terms of talent, I think that he is in that discussion. I think that the Jaguars are kind of the classic forgotten team in their division. I know Titans fans will be like, no, that's us this year. There's certainly some of that. Don't get me wrong. The Jaguars have been dismissed as either inconsequential or just confusing by pretty much everybody not in Jacksonville this offseason. And I get that, and I've done it myself as well. But I think they have a very strong quarterback. I think that they do still have weapons on offense that, I think that their running back situation, not super deep, but I think that Etienne is a good player. And we've heard good things. If you paid attention to Jacksonville's camp, we've heard good things about their rookie receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. Apparently he's ahead of schedule, it seems. So he could be good in a hurry. I just think that this year is maybe going to go differently for the Jaguars than it has in the past. I'm not saying they're going to be awesome or make the playoffs or anything, but their quarterback, I think for ball knowers, they're going to watch the tape and see indisputably this guy's healthy. This guy's a baller. He's a top 10, borderline top 10, 10-ish, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, quarterback in the league. Pretty clearly, consensus.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
The opposite of that?
No, I wasn't going to say. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is mid, but I think his success
yes,
this
you
year.
do. No.
I think he's good. I think he's good.
No, you've called him mid for years on this show. You've called him mid for years.
Think I've said
don't
that.
walk back now.
Okay, well, walk it.
So what do you actually think? Like, where is it? Was he like is he the 12th best quarterback in the league? What do you think? Because if he's mid, he's like the 16th or 17th best, and that's what I think you think.
Maybe I think he's somewhere between 10 and 15.
Okay. So
I think he's slightly
better than
on that line. I think it's very dependent year to year. And I think that was my biggest take there. Okay. Is that I think his success kind of lives and dies a little bit with Brian Thomas Jr. because we've seen the known quantities of that offense before, right? We know what Christian Kirk is in that offense. We know what Evan Ingram is. We know what Travis Etienne is. We kind of know what that offensive line is, but still it's just like a lot of unknowns there with that offensive line. If it's good, I think he can be good. However, I think that's saying
Trevor Lawrence is Daniel Jones with better hair. This is not. It's just so not true. It's
but
crazy.
I think the unknown is Brian Thomas Jr. and how much of an X factor he can be. And so if Brian Thomas Jr. is, like you said, ahead of schedule and looking like he can be that alpha in that offense, I think he can elevate Trevor Lawrence that much more into maybe that top 10 conversation. But for now, the pieces around him just serve him to be good enough, but not take him to that next level. And I think that is where Trevor Lawrence kind of lies right now within the realm of the quarterback landscape.
Okay, so what's your first AFC South take?
My first AFC South take is that I think the Colts could be...
No, hang on. I'm so sorry. I just have to dunk on D-Good here. Look at the stats. D-Good over here. Box score scouting quarterbacks in the league. Watch the games, D-Good. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. The next one that I think you might not like as a fan of the Ravens and the Colts and the Texans and every other team except the Titans.
That's right.
I think the Colts have a chance to be like really, really bad, like first overall pick bad.
Oh, okay. My next two takes are also Colts related, so I'm interested if there's some overlap here. I
think the biggest question with the Colts is Anthony Richardson. Can he play more than 2 games? We've seen in the preseason how he has looked up and down, a lot more down than up. This is maybe a parallel we can put with what we saw from CJ Stroud last year in the preseason, and look how that turned out for him. But I think that's a big unknown there. If Anthony Richardson continues to play like he did in the preseason, I think they have a big problem in the quarterback room. And I think that's going to be the big thing, is why they cannot continue to put up points in games. And then on the other side, if they
so you think if he plays all year, but plays at the level that he did last year, they'll be bad?
Yes.
Oh man, I disagree with that. Okay.
So with that, if Anthony Richardson is not being able to play to the level a lot of people think he can, it means that this Colts defense is going to have to, step up. But what have we seen from that Colts defense this offseason? It's kind of sneaky bad. Like the back end of that defense is a problem for sure.
The meme where it's like, can't afford X. Well, I guess it's this for you, champ.
Yes.
It's like that for every position on their secondary. It's been that way.
I would say
can't afford L'Jarius Sneed. Well, it's a guy that I don't even know what his name is.
Juju Brett's for you, I guess.
That's right.
I think that with this defense, if Anthony Richardson in this offense cannot put up points, they're just going to lose games by default because teams are going to be able to absolutely just run up the score on this defense. And now I know they have good players on the front end, like DeForest Buckner and EJ Speed and a lot of those guys. And their new rookie edge defender, Laiatu Latu. Like, I think that front can be lethal, but everything else around it is bottom half of the league, if not bottom 10 in the league currently. And I think they did not do a lot to address it, which I think concerns me. And then you also have to consider that offensive line. 2 years ago, they looked really, really bad. Were able to kind of revert to a top 10 offensive line last year, but does that pendulum swing back the other way? Those are all the questions, I think. And so if we have the pendulum for that offensive line swinging back towards they look like they did 2 years ago, Anthony Richardson can't figure it out, and then you have teams just putting up 25 to 30 points a game because they're absolutely just dissecting this Colts secondary. I think you have a legitimate argument to be made that the Colts could be looking at it at that first overall pick.
Fair enough. Well, I'll fire off my next AFC South Purge take, which is also a Colts take. And it's that I think Anthony Richardson just dies immediately again. So I disagree with you. I disagree with you that if he plays at the level he did for the 10 quarters or so he played last year, that they'll be bad. I think, again, that's also a watch tape moment for me, honestly. Like, I think that if you think that, you should go watch it again, because I've watched it like
the sample size is just not big enough. I don't think it's big enough.
I agree. But that's not what you said. You didn't say it's inconclusive. You said that it was bad. And I think that that's wrong, personally. But we don't have to get into that. The point here is whether it's good or bad when he's on the field. My Purge take is that he won't be on the field. And I tweeted this out a couple weeks, or I guess 2 weeks ago. And I said that if Anthony Richardson plays a full season this year, he's going to double the number of games he's played since high school, functionally speaking. And folks got mad at that because it's like, well, if you go look at the stats on Football Reference, he's played 22 games, and last year he played 4 games. What? No, stop. Hang on. When I say double the number of games he's played, I mean in a starter sense. And so I went down and I broke it down in excruciating detail. Here's what Anthony Richardson has actually done since high school. Okay, games since high school, where he has started the game as the starting quarterback and finished it alive. 14 games since high school. Started the game and got hurt in said game and didn't finish the game. Two games he's done that. And in those 2 games, it was less than 3 total quarters of play. It's not even 1 game combined. Not even 3/4 of 1 game combined, in fact. He has 2 games in which he was the backup where he threw 10 or more times. So he came in and played a significant amount of the time in those games. And he has 5 games in which he was the gadget backup, threw the ball less than 10 times, came in, made a play or 2 early on in his college career. So barely was out there. And yet, even in those 7 combined backup games, he was knocked out of 2 of those games due to injury, knocked out of them entirely. So if he merely starts 17 games this year, he will actually more than double the number of starts he's had and finished since high school. Because that number was, or not even start and finish, just start. Even if you got hurt in every game and still played the next week, he would still double the number of games in which he started, which is 16 since high school. The total number of games since high school that he's done anything of note as a quarterback is 24. Because I'm even going to throw in one, the 2020 bowl game. He came in as, I think, a freshman, threw for 1 touchdown, 1 pass, 1 touchdown pass. So there's a little generosity for you. So yes, technically it will not be doubling the games, but it'll be almost doubling the games. All of that being said, that's the technical jargon of it. He's not played much in the last 5 years of his life. That's not good. And I think, he's my guy. He was my quarterback 1 in that class. I still believe in him. I think that he is a scary, scary talent on paper. I just don't know if he can stay healthy out there. And so my take is that he dies again. Maybe not 2 games, but like maybe the take should be he doesn't get to November alive and he's out again for the year. And then, I'm going to actually skip you in line because my last take here is also Colts related. If that happens, what it leads to is Chris Ballard is the first GM fired this year of the, like in the cycle, the whole league. We heard Chris Ballard talking about his potential firing that may happen in the future in the press this week. And he was basically saying it was the GM equivalent of Kirk Cousins saying, if I die, I die. Where he's like, if I get fired for the way that I GM, so be it. Whatever. I went down swinging. This offseason has been all about how he stuck by his guys. He basically just re-signed the whole team. His biggest free agent acquisition was NFL Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco. But other than that, really nothing of note. If things go poorly and or his quarterback that he's tethered himself to with a 4th round pick 2 years ago, if that happens, then he may very well be done before the end of the season, John Robinson style.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And Joey says take Purge. Anthony Richardson will either be injured for most of the year again or prove that he can't pass the ball. He will not become any better than Fields did. So he's giving him in this take Purge a Justin Fields ceiling, which I think is a pretty hot take there.
So backing Joey up Russell Wilson, that's the ceiling. Is next year being Russell Wilson's backup. Got it.
One more in the comments here before we continue. Paul saying that for the Titans, his take Purge is 6 30-point games this year. That's
to the highest scoring offense in the league is what Paul's calling for, essentially. Yes, because that's what that would mean. Yeah.
My last take here in the AFC South is along the lines of something we kind of talked about, but I think that Bobby Slowick may end up just crumbling under the immense pressure of that Texans offense this season. And I think that
I'm with you.
The way he interviewed this past coaching cycle, the things we heard out of that locker room, kind of confirmed or unconfirmed, I think that there is a legitimate chance that with the amount of weapons that are vying for targets, bringing in a guy like Stephon Diggs, who continues, whether or not it was real or not, but the jokes of him already yapping to CJ Stroud on the sideline, pissed off because he didn't get enough targets in a preseason game. Like, I think there's just so many moving parts there's a legit chance that the way Bobby Slowick runs this offense may just cannibalize itself and lead to inefficiency. And with that, I think that this Texans defense may be good enough to keep them in games, but it really is the high validity of this Texans offense that is going to take them over the top. And so if Bobby Slowick can't get it going, I think that this Texans team may be in for a rude awakening this season.
All right. Do you have any more AFC South takes since I skipped you in line?
That was it.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think we're on NFL takes here as we're already running long, but you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way on my final show. I have 3 NFL takes. How many do you have?
I have 1.5.
1.5. Okay. Well, let me get a couple. We don't have to spend as long on these, but let me fire a couple of these off. Here's the first one, which I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on. The Bills. I think that they win the AFC East comfortably. That's the take that I think people are missing. It's one of the biggest things that I think folks are missing this year. Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the league. I think that's pretty clear in my eyes. If Joe Burrow is always healthy, maybe it's be a different conversation. And Justin Herbert, if he is on a good team for a couple of years, maybe that'll change my opinion. And he's a fantastic quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but I think Josh Allen is clearly the second best quarterback. And when you're the second best quarterback and you're a bona fide, put the team on your back for multiple months at a time style player like Josh Allen is, I don't really care about the team around you. I don't. And that's been the case. Folks have come around to that idea with Patrick Mahomes since he continues to win Super Bowls doing it. And that's the easiest way to prove that case. And I'm not saying he is Patrick Mahomes, but I am saying that when you've got that guy on your team, I don't really care about the Miami Dolphins, putting up 70 points in September and October and inevitably crumbling down the stretch. I don't really care about the Jets, which are basically, I saw, so it may have been Nate Tice today, compare them to, what the AT-ATs in Star Wars, where it's like they are unbelievable firepower up top. They're on stilt legs and they will crumble so fast.
That's such a good take.
It's a
Wow,
great
that's
comp, isn't
really
it?
good. I like it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find who it was because I'm less confident now that I say it that it was Nate Tice, but somebody had a great comp there. I think that he's the dude. So that's the Bills take. My other one that I'll fire off real quick, and we've already covered this on the show in some detail, but I think the Cardinals are going to be the quote unquote surprise team this season. That's not super hot. People have they're a hipster team this year. Their offensive coordinator is somebody that people like a lot. I think Kyler in the year after the year with his injury is poised to have a really big season to remind folks that he's absolutely an underrated quarterback in the NFL. Marvin Harrison Jr. is who he is. Excited to see what he's doing. The true wide receiver one down there, obviously, Greg Dortch is going to Dortch everyone in the face every week all year long. So can't wait for that. He's a stud. They've got a lot of young talent on that team. Are they going to be awesome? No, but do they sneak into the playoffs? I'll say yes here on the Take Purge.
Couple more in the comments here that we can get to before mine. Z Dean says NFL take, it's Baltimore's year and Derek gets a ring. Raven fan Easton would be very happy about that one. JT Bengals fan will be very happy about this one. NFL take from Kenneth, one that will make JT happy. NMM Joe Burrow,
You
NFL MVP.
Eminem.
I'd be cool with that one. But my first NFL take here is this one might blow you out of the water because this is one I've been chewing on for the last 4 days or so, ever since roster Cutdown. I think there's a chance that the Washington Commanders win the NFC East.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
I am a big Jaden Daniels fan. Big Jaden Daniels fan, and as I continue to look at their roster,
Daniels fan, we're killing the speaking thing here at the end of the show.
It's getting late.
You get past the hour mark, and it's
all downhill.
No holds barred.
I think Jaden Daniels could end up winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year with the way that he and Cliff Kingsbury will run this offense. I really like the weapons that they've given him as well between Terry McLaurin and Ben Sinnott, their new tight end, Brian Robinson,
Noah Brown, come on,
Noah Brown, Texans legend right there. Welcome to the squad. I like the weapons that they've continued to put around him, and then that defense I think continues to be sneaky good with the players. They continue signing Bobby Wagner in the offseason to kind of be the anchor point of that defense.
47-year-old Bobby Wagner.
If the secondary can take the step forward. I think when you look at
Flat Stanley
and how they are going to play against some teams with that fourth place schedule, I think the Commanders may have a shot to go from worst to first.
I'm all over it. Like I would love for it to happen. I just want to make sure you're aware of the fact that you just made the case for the Commanders to win their division, a good division, and the second name out of your mouth was Cliff Kingsbury. So. Let's keep that in mind, perhaps.
Okay.
But listen, I hope you're right. I think you're crazy. I hope you're right. Okay, my last one before you get off whatever your half take is. My last one, speaking of the NFC East, the Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs entirely. It's going to be a blow-up situation. I think that they have lost a lot of talent. That Jerry Jones being all in this offseason, their actions have been all out. They signed CD, which cool, congrats. They have no other receivers. 1,000-year-old Brandon Cooks who will be fine.
Ryan Flournoy. Hello.
Yeah, you're proving my point. It's CD and nobody. Their running game is going to potentially be the all-time washed running back room with Zeke Elliott already on the squad, which I don't know. Did you see the clip a couple weeks ago where he's like running through a practice dummy and then like he's like old man levels of pain afterwards and has to take a breather? It's going to be a lot of that this year. I think he may be missing Zeke a lot. And then he's not on the team yet, is he? Or is he on the team? Dalvin Cook. They signed him. Okay, so he's on the team. Okay, so it is the all-time washed running back room. Yeah. And then Rico Dowdle is the other guy, which, he may be the most talented of the three, but if Rico Dowdle is your best, what exactly are you doing? I think their defense is going to take a step back after having lost their defensive coordinator. Guys like Micah Parsons, pretty late in the summer process, talking about how, me and the new coach, we've not actually had any conversations yet, but I can't wait to sit down and talk to him. Okay, that bodes well. And also, by the way, they're going to use him in more like a stand-up outside linebacker role, apparently, than as an edge rusher, and maybe not send him as much, which seems, I don't know, dumb. But there's a lot of things about this team where I think they take a step back. Dak Prescott, that contract situation is going to be to the much chagrin of literally everybody in the world, is going to be a conversation that's on ESPN every day of every week until they sign him. They probably aren't going to sign him because he's probably going to demand $60 million next year when he walks out the door after a 9-8 season when the Cowboys missed the playoffs entirely. And Jerry is, I don't know, like opining in March about how, I might die before he even getting back to a conference championship. It's going to get grim in a hurry.
Hey, I'm here for it. That would be.
I mean, we all are.
Yeah.
That could be wish casting on my part. Maybe they'll be awesome and win
is.
13 games.
Kenneth has one
not.
more in here. He says, one last NFL take. First coach fired is Robert Saleh. I think that's in the realm of possibility. And then my half take here. I'm joining. I tried to make Rattlermania, #Rattlermania a thing, but I've learned that there is my people are out there using #the agenda.
The agenda. I saw this. What is
with
this?
Snake emojis.
Cabal?
I guess so. But my take is to end off here is that Spencer Rattler wins Offensive Rookie of the Year.
That's correct. I really hate you.
We can't talk about it anymore. We can't talk about it.
I hate you for cutting me off like that because I had questions.
Yep,
So I know that you don't. This is crazy. Like obviously, Derek Carr is the quarterback in New Orleans.
I think Derek Carr goes down. This is me wish casting Derek Carr going down in week 1.
You're in on the agenda outside of the take Purge.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I am.
All right. Well, all that's left for us to do is a little walk down Hot Read Podcast memory lane, and then I am gone forever as your host. They take my name off the wall, and I hand the metaphorical baton off to JT and Stoney as we head into the 2024 NFL season. Shrike asking if my fridge is okay. Yes, it is okay. JT, it's still in the doorway. Yeah, Paul's all over it. Let's play a couple clips here. My first ever episode of the Titans 10 before it became the Hot Read Podcast, a short form Titans news podcast that nobody listened to. It came out in September or maybe early October of 2021. And here's what it sounded like. It's a tough listen, but we'll listen anyways. Are the Titans improving on defense? And why was Mike Vrabel unhappy after the game? This is the Titans 10. We're talking that and much more. Let's go. Sick.
Let's go.
So sick,
go.
Dude. So sick. Welcome into the first ever episode of the Titans 10. I'm your host, Easton Freeze. I'm a writer and a broadcaster covering all things Titans and the NFL for BroadwaySportsMedia.com. This is the Titans 10 for September 28th, and we've got a lot of ground to cover in this pilot episode. So let's get into the Week 3 recap. Well, the Titans improved to 2-1 this weekend, taking down their division rival, the Indianapolis Colts, 25-16, getting a win here against them at home for the first time in a couple years. It was far from a perfect showing for the Titans. There were a lot of positives and negatives to take away from this game. In terms of positives, on the defensive side of the ball, there were 3 players that really stood out. Okay, that's enough of that. We can be done. So that was me. It looked like October 5th, 2021. Wow. And then we went through that fall with the Titans 10, and then we went into the spring. I met James Foster for the first time, convinced him to co-host with me. We did that draft cycle, which was great, and then he got hired by A to Z and is obviously doing awesome things with his film room. And then that summer I took off. James and I think, did our last episode with Emily Proud, I think, as a OTA recap video because we weren't credentialed at the time. So we were talking to her because she was out there about what they saw in early June. And then you and I came back on the mic for the first time in like 3 months in September, Labor Day weekend. You and I were at a party at your house. I don't know what the party, I think we were just hanging out. And you just mentioned in an offhand comment, like, hey, do you ever need help with your show? And I was like, actually, I would love somebody in a producer role. Let's give it a try. And so this is what it sounded like. I find this funnier than my thing. We'll see what the people think. 2 clips. This first one is when I introduce you, and you have so much to say. You're a real chatterbox here at the top. And then we'll get to some more JT content from later in that episode.
I have to introduce to you a new voice that you're going to be hearing relatively regularly on the show going forward. It is JT Runke. He is my producer now on the show. He's going to be around doing a lot of different segments with us, handling our news segments. And JT's one of my best friends in the world who is in sports business, but not really sports media. He wanted to dip his toe into the sports media water, and I knew that he had quite a bit of skill in terms of technical production side of things when
struggling
it
to think of what your skills are.
And so I said,
he's really good at
let's give it a
things.
try. And we've been working on what this new show is going to look like for a couple of weeks now, and I'm really excited to bring him on. I think you're going to like him a lot. JT, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Easton, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Oh my
We're
God.
excited to have you. So
that's it. Just no more thoughts. Just thanks for being here. And then years later in the show, we were doing a game that day. I think a fantasy related game. Here's your first real speaking opportunity on the show. I think folks will realize things have improved a little bit in the last 2 years.
A little game with it. So explain how we're going to do this.
Yeah, so I got a little game for you here. We're going to play a little bit of higher or lower, basically.
You sound scared.
What I'm going to do is we're going to go down,
hiding.
Give you about 4 or 5 of the most relevant offensive players fantasy-wise for the Titans here. Talk about them just a little bit, kind of give you where they're going right now. And then I'm going to give you kind of a little estimate. Going to play a little bit of Vegas here.
Okay.
And give you a position number of where they'll be halfway through the season.
Okay.
And it's going to be your job to tell me if they're going to be higher than that or lower than that. And let's start with none other than Ryan Tannehill. Right now, he's going with.
All right. That's
wow.
How about that? How about that? You sound like you're hiding in the corner with your voice somehow. You sound.
This is my. Wait, do I still have? I used to have that mic. Oh,
the old microphone.
Hold on.
Well, I was talking through a computer mic on that one, so it was horrible.
Well, my old this.
Oh yeah, the Yeti mic. Sure. That's what we used to sound like a couple years ago. And since then, man, I compiled some of the numbers here to end my run. 3 years, 337 shows, 270 shows with you and I, JT. I compiled how many minutes of audio we have put out into the internet. You want to guess how many minutes it's been that folks have listened to us ramble?
I don't want to know.
Roughly 17,000 minutes of broadcasting.
Ooh.
On the Hot Read podcast. That's a lot of minutes.
It's a lot of minutes.
How many? Let's do the math on how many days of my life I've been talking into this microphone. So 17,000 minutes is. That's not how that works, Easton. Good math. That is 283-ish hours, which is almost 12 days. So almost 12 days, night and day, start to finish. Almost a full fortnight, almost a full 2-week period of us talking onto these microphones. We went to 2 NFL combines. We covered a Senior Bowl, did a week of shows from all 3 of those events. We did a couple shows in London, covered an international game, which was one of the cooler adventures of my life. The first year of this show, the first calendar year, the show reached roughly 21,000 people. That was the impression rate. And
nice.
This year we're on pace for over 500,000, which is something that I am incredibly proud of. Super cool. And it is, again, a real bummer to have to leave behind the show that really has been my baby for not my actual baby, because I have one of those 2 now, but has been my baby for the past 3 years. I guess I'll end with these notes that you got me, which I've not forgotten about. They're letters. They all say open on the pod. I hate them already. Can I open them? Is it all right if I go ahead?
Yeah, no. Yeah, we're good.
So they're cards. I hate store-bought cards.
Logan asks, has he read the cards? So you can guess where these are from. These are mostly from our from the Horsemen of the Hot Read.
Of the Apocalypse, right? I appreciate you guys.
I brought this to them, but the person that wanted to make this an idea in the first place was Goody. Goody one day DM'd me and said, "Hey, can we just get Easton a bunch of cards just to open on the show?" And so we've done it. We're here now. So
all right. Well, so this is
what's the first one?
It's a hamster wearing chains that says "Stop," which I don't know. All right. So I don't open it, or I do open it?
No,
the hamster's instructions are unclear. Okay.
I think you should open it.
Oh, I see. It says hamster time. I hate it so much. The platitudes.
Yes.
Here's hoping nothing can touch how cool your birthday is.
Well, happy birthday.
You wrote it. What?
I said happy birthday.
Oh,
so.
thank you. You're
welcome.
a couple months early, but I appreciate that.
Happy birthday to the Hot Read Podcast, I guess. That's why I got him.
3 years, roughly. Sure. Yeah. Happy birthday to the Hot Read Podcast.
Toddler.
Yeah. Get ready for the terrible threes on the podcast. JT and Stoney. It's going to be a real mess.
I promise the podcast. Yeah, the podcast is not going to be terrible, even though it's 3. So
I see. Well, it was the terrible 2s. Now you're growing up a little bit.
Oh,
Things are
I
becoming
see.
more
Okay.
sophisticated.
Yes.
Is that what's happening?
I guess so.
This says, shout out ChatGPT. Easton, the Titans have better coverage than your hot takes. Easton, you talk a big game, but you're as clutch as Fat Randy. That's really tough. Two-toned blue, more like two-toned snooze, thanks to your podcast. Your podcast is the Marcus Mariota of the airwaves. Nice guy, poor execution. Don't worry, we won't forget you. We'll just put you on injured reserve in our hearts. Signed, OKC Titan. And Jacob saying,
They went through Chat GPT and made roasts for you.
Titans roasts from our AI overlords. They all stunk. So that I guess checks out. It says roses are red, violets are blue. Bill Callahan is under a lot of pressure, and you are too. Signed to the Horseman. So thanks for card number 1. I guess I'm on to card number 2.
Yep.
This is it's one of the old people cards. It's a couple of old folks on a cruise. The green screen is not wanting to show you their faces, but there they are. The man says cruises are so delightful. We should take them more often. Oh, and then the lady says we're at the Home and Garden store, dear. Okay. Hope your birthday is so nice. It just feels like a vacation. Goody wrote something in here that I'm not going to read out loud. So thank you. Thank you, Goody. Appreciate that. You know what you said. And then Logan says, this is our pod. JT's the real host. We don't need you. This is our pod. Go Horseman. Nay.
It's supposed to be in the
it's
the sound. It's the song of Sether.
Okay, gotcha. And then the nay at the end.
Yes,
the grace.
There you go.
That's good, Logan. And you're from Indianapolis, so you're familiar. Are you the producer on those? He seems really familiar with how that works.
Degood calls you a coward in the chat for not reading his message. So
he said congrats on not pulling out, which is technically true, but not appropriate for the family-friendly Hot Read podcast. Speaking of which, JT, is the Hot Read pod going to become family unfriendly when it's you and Stoney? Are you going to change the?
We're still in the business meetings. We're still ironing out all the.
What are the FCC requirements for the airwaves?
Yeah,
maybe it's one of those things where we were on cable, and so we were required to abide by daytime cable requirements. But then you guys just got picked up by a streaming service. You're on HBO now, and you can just say whatever the if you want. Yeah. So that would be the justification should you guys just choose to go that route. The final card, all of which I hate. It's just a banana, and it says thanks. On the inside, it says you're the best of the bunch. Wow. So you really went to the card store and just picked out the worst cards you could find. Was that the idea here?
Yeah, that was the idea. So
okay, Jordan's saying never underhand anything unless you're a burrito. Always underhand your burrito. Thank you for the advice, Jordan. I will not be abiding by it. I'll be overhanding anything that I so choose. And then Monin and Paul saying ask JT to play the song.
So Monin also used Chat GPT
to make one of the songs. No way.
A song. Okay. And then Paul C. Baki on Twitter, kind of revised it, and he actually recorded a song that I'm going to play.
Have you heard
on
this?
Here.
Have you heard this?
It's beautiful.
Am I going to want to die listening to this?
I think it's going to be awesome, and I think it's a perfect way to send off this iteration of the Hot Read podcast. So here without further ado, here's the song created by Paul and Monin.
Beneath Nashville skies, a voice was born through the heart of the Titans. Fandom he stormed with passion unyielding and words ablaze. Easton Freeze carved a path through the gridiron haze. From Broadway's lights to the mic's embrace, the Hot Read's wisdom, a late but steady grace. Each nuance dissected with the sharpest insight. Beacon for fans in football's night. Memories were made, and some just won't fade. Noisy flies on the wall, and we saw it all. The great taco reverse, JT interruptions, and the ghost, Callahan's pressure. New fatherhood, we're on the sidelines, and oh, how we love the view. Yet now the winds of change do call, brand new horizon where dreams enthrall. Broadway stage to rain, the storyteller's journey begins once again.
This is a full song.
Yeah.
Gone are the days of familiar streets, Sunday mornings and Nashville beats. But in every pause and in every cheer, the echo of Easton still lingers near.
I feel like I'm dying. Is this my funeral?
This is a eulogy.
New fields, adventures, bold and true. Those he leaves will still pursue. The tales, the joy, the wisdom he shared. In every moment, a voice that kinda cared.
My wife just jumped off the couch.
Farewell,
right
dear
there.
scribe of Titan's might. May your journey ahead be ever bright. Though you leave this chapter behind, forever a horseman, your legacy entwined in time.
Wow. That was fantastic. that is a better send-off than I could have ever asked for. I do appreciate that all of you, JT and the Hooligan Horsemen, put in so little effort to the creativity element of this, where you just go to ChatGPT for all musings you possibly needed. I wouldn't have it any other way. But did you play on that, Paul? Was that Paul playing and singing?
Yeah,
That was
that's all
fantastic.
Paul. That's all Paul.
Paul's the man. That is
It's
awesome.
fire. So
That is awesome. Well, I'm not dying. That song made it sound like, play that again at my funeral. Okay. Can somebody write that down? No one's going to get it, but I want it played at my funeral in full live. Probably not by Paul unless I die quite young, because Paul is older than me, but you never know. Okay. So I think that's it. We've done enough navel gazing and saying goodbye. And to everyone in the comments today that said nice things about me, I appreciate you guys. Again, I'm not going anywhere. JT and I are not going to not be friends anymore. We still play softball together every week. We're still in fantasy leagues together. We're still best friends from college. So like, that part doesn't change.
before we also leave, I'll be contacting people about a Hot Read podcast fantasy league. That's not.
Yes,
I
they keep
gotta do
asking.
that,
That's
so.
happening. Don't worry, I won't be in it. But frankly, if I was in it, I would have, probably been last anyways, because I'm not good at fantasy football. So.
Yep. This is true.
It's all right. But I appreciate all you guys, and truly, I've said it a million times. It's been 3 years. It's 3 of the most fantastic years of my life, and the past 2 with you, JT, have genuinely been some of the most fun adventures. Getting to go to the combine and go international and go to the Senior Bowl, and some of my best memories of the past 2 years have been this, and it's been as fun as it has been work. Most of the time that I spent on this show, I was doing it because I really enjoyed it. And there were times that you and I were doing it because we enjoyed it and for no other reason, because we certainly weren't making any money off of it there early on. So, I'll be around. I'll be covering the Titans. I hopefully will be asked
Now
back
it's just
on
double
this show.
trouble. Now people can see us twice.
That's right. That's right. More of finally JT gets to talk. I won't interrupt him anymore. And I'll be talking elsewhere.
We're just a bigger headache now for the Titans. That's all it
right.
really
People that hired
is,
me
so.
don't know what kind of a mess they've got themselves into. So they'll shortly understand the mistake that they've made. But best of luck to you. Best of luck to Stoney. You guys are going to do awesome. I can't wait to be like these hooligans over here in the comments, cheering you guys on and listening to your insight twice a week. And you guys are going to, I think, take the show to new heights. So that's exciting. I think that's it. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for 3 years of listening. And thank you to JT for 2 years. It's been a pleasure. I will see you in my new employment situation next week. Excited to announce that on Monday. And we go into the Titan season, hopefully for good or for bad team content. Let's win this. Let's win this year. Let's have interesting things happen so that both JT and Stoney and I in our respective places have plenty of things to talk about, and fans have plenty of reasons to watch. That's going to do it for us today. I'm going to do it for me on the Hot Read Podcast. For producer JT, I am your host, Easton Freeze. Once and for all, signing off. JT and Stoney will talk to you next Tuesday.